Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today, we re-diving deep into one of the most powerful stories ever told, the story of God, creation, and the destiny of humankind. Get ready for a journey that will challenge your mind and awaken your spirit. Chapter 1: The Prince Who Saw Suffering. In the heart of an ancient kingdom, surrounded by marble walls and gardens of eternal spring, a prince was born beneath a sky painted in gold. His name was Siddhartha Gautama, and from the moment of his birth, seers whispered of destiny. They said he would become either a great king or a great teacher, a ruler of men or a liberator of souls. His father, King Suddhodana, chose the first path. He built for his son a world without sorrow, palaces filled with music, flowers that never wilted, dancers that never wept. The young prince lived among illusions of perfection, untouched by pain, disease, or death. In this golden cage, Siddhartha grew wise, but not awake, the dream of a perfect world. Every morning, he would walk among lotus ponds where the water mirrored the sky, and wonder if there was anything beyond this peace. His tutors taught him logic and swordplay, poetry and governance, but none could answer the question that flickered in his heart. Why do we seek joy if joy fades? What meaning lies in a world that ends? He would gaze at the horizon, where the mountains dissolved into mist, feeling an ache he could not name, a faint whisper of impermanence calling from beyond the palace gates. Then came the day the prince left his walls. The 4 encounters, curiosity, that quiet spark of awakening, led him into the world his father had forbidden him to see. There he met the faces of truth. The first was an old man, bent and trembling, his hair like snow. Siddhartha had never seen age before. "What is wrong with him?" he asked his charioteer. "Nothing, my prince," the man replied. "This is the fate of all who live." The second was a sick man, coughing blood beneath a tree. "Does this happen to everyone?" Siddhartha asked again. "Yes, my prince. All bodies fall to sickness." The third was a corpse carried to the funeral pyre. The air trembled with smoke and sorrow. "And death," whispered Siddhartha, "comes to all as well." "Yes, my prince, even to kings." The fourth, however, was a monk, calm and radiant, walking barefoot with a bowl in his hand. His face glowed with peace unknown to the prince. What gives him this serenity amid such suffering? "He has renounced the world," said the charioteer. "He seeks the truth beyond birth and death." And in that moment, something inside Siddhartha broke, not in despair, but in awakening. The veil of illusion fell away. The prince saw the truth that beauty, youth, and pleasure were not freedom, but chains woven of time. That night, as the palace slept, Siddhartha watched his wife and newborn son. He felt love so deep it hurt, because he knew he must leave them. "If I stay," he whispered, "I remain blind. If I go, I may never return, but I might awaken." He looked once more at the world of dreams and stepped into the night. The great renunciation. Siddhartha cut his hair, shed his royal robes, and walked into the forest with nothing but a bowl and his breath. The moonlight followed him, silent witness to the birth of a seeker. He sought truth among hermits and ascetics. He starved, meditated, endured cold and pain, and learned every path the world offered. But none freed him from the burning of the mind. Each extreme only deepened his suffering. He realized that the path to freedom was not indulgence, nor self-denial, but balance, the middle way. So one day, weak from fasting, he accepted a bowl of rice from a young girl named Sujata, the first nourishment in days. And in that act of compassion, both hers and his acceptance, the middle way was born. The Bodhi tree under the branches of a great fig tree, Siddhartha sat upon the earth. He placed his right hand upon the ground and vowed, "Let the earth bear witness. I will not rise until I see the truth." Night fell. Mara, the lord of illusion, came to tempt him with desire, fear, and doubt. But Siddhartha saw through them all. He saw that Mara was not a demon, but his own mind, clinging to self and form. As dawn approached, the last veil dissolved. He saw the wheel of existence, birth, decay, and death, turning endlessly. He saw that suffering arises from craving, and craving from ignorance of the true nature of things. Then, as the morning star rose, Siddhartha Gautama became the Buddha, the awakened one. In that stillness, all life shimmered as one, each breath, each stone, each star, a reflection of the same boundless truth. All that arises will pass away. Peace comes not from clinging, but from seeing that there is nothing to cling to. The birds sang as if they, too, understood. The Bodhi leaves trembled in the dawn wind, and the universe exhaled. That morning, the world changed, not through conquest or prophecy, but through silence. For in one man's awakening, humanity glimpsed its own reflection. The prince, who had seen suffering, had now seen beyond it, and thus began the path of enlightenment. Chapter 2: The Four Noble Truths. The first turning of the wheel. The forest of Isapadana, near the city of Benares, was quiet in the early dawn. The air shimmered with dew, and the world seemed to hold its breath. In that stillness, 5 ascetics sat in meditation, men who had once followed Siddhartha Gautama, but abandoned him when he chose to eat again. To them, he had failed. To them, enlightenment could not come from balance, only from denial. But that morning, as the sun rose like a golden lotus from the horizon, they saw him approaching calm, radiant, barefoot. Something had changed in his gaze. There was no hunger, no pride, no shadow, only peace. They bowed without knowing why. The silence before the truth. The Buddha sat before them. For a moment, he said nothing. The silence itself was a teaching, a reflection of the stillness beyond all thought. Then, with a voice like water flowing over stone, he spoke. There is suffering. There is a cause of suffering. There is an end to suffering. And there is a path that leads to the end. The words were simple, yet they trembled with the weight of truth, like 4 doors opening to infinity. The first truth, dukkha, the reality of suffering. Birth is suffering. Aging is suffering. Illness is suffering. Death is suffering. To be with what we dislike is suffering. To be separated from what we love is suffering. Not to get what we want is suffering. The disciples listened, their hearts trembling. He was not condemning the world, he was revealing it. Life, he said, is beautiful and transient. But because we cling to what changes, we experience pain. We want things to stay, but they never do. Like trying to hold sunlight in your hands. The tighter you grasp, the faster it slips away. Suffering was not punishment, it was a teacher. The second truth, samudaya, the cause of suffering. Suffering arises from craving, from the thirst that clings to pleasure, existence, and non-existence. Craving. Tan is the fire that keeps the wheel of life turning. We crave to have, to become, to be seen. We crave not to lose, not to change, not to die. And from craving arises attachment to people, to ideas, to self. The Buddha lifted a leaf and let it fall. When you hold something too tightly, you give it the power to hurt you. But when you let it be, you and the world are free. The third truth, Nirvana, the end of suffering. If craving is abandoned, suffering ceases. Like a flame without fuel, the fire goes out. This was Nirvana, not a heaven, not an escape, but the quiet extinguishing of the fires of greed, hatred, and delusion. It is the peace that remains when the mind no longer grasps. When you no longer say, I am, because there is no longer anything to defend or become. The disciples felt a stillness within them, as if a great burden they never knew they carried had suddenly been lifted. The fourth truth, Magga, the path to the end of suffering, and this, O monks, is the path that leads to the end of suffering, the noble eightfold path. He drew a circle in the dust, a wheel with 8 spokes, and named them one by one: right view, seeing reality as it is; right intention, thoughts of compassion and renunciation; right speech, words that heal, not harm; right action, deeds that honor life; right livelihood, work that brings no suffering; right effort, the will to cultivate good and abandon evil; right mindfulness, awareness of body, feeling, and thought; right concentration, a focused mind, still as the moon. Together, these 8 paths form the middle way, not a bridge between extremes, but a way beyond them. The Buddha said, when the mind walks this path, it becomes clear. When it is clear, it sees. And when it sees, it is free. The turning of the wheel. As he finished speaking, the 5 ascetics sat in silence. Their hearts were open. Their minds were still. And in that stillness, the wheel of Dharma turned for the first time. One of them, Kusinagara, suddenly understood. He saw that what is born will die, that all things arise and pass away, and that peace is found not by running from the world, but by understanding it. He looked up at the Buddha, tears in his eyes, and said, Now I see, Lord, whatever is born will cease. The Buddha smiled. Kusinagara has seen the truth. From this day, let him be known as Aniya Kusinagara, Kusinagara who has understood. And so began the Sangha, the community of those who seek the end of suffering. The first turning of the wheel had begun, and its echo would roll through centuries, across mountains, oceans, and the hearts of countless beings. For the truth the Buddha taught that morning was not bound to any god or nation. It was the law of the universe itself, the rhythm of existence, the heartbeat of awakening. The sun rose higher, bathing the forest in light. The Buddha stood, quiet as ever, and looked out over the land. Wander forth, monks, he said softly, for the good of the many, for the happiness of the many. Teach the Dharma that is beautiful in its beginning, beautiful in its middle, and beautiful in its end. And so they went barefoot, serene, to carry a message not of gods, but of truth, that freedom was possible, that awakening was not for the chosen, but for all. Chapter 3, The Middle Way, Beyond Extremes and Illusion. The Buddha once said, just as the string of a lute cannot make music if it is too tight or too loose, so too must the mind be tuned in balance, neither drowned in indulgence, nor strangled by denial. After his enlightenment, many sought to understand how the Buddha reached peace. He had known both luxury and torment, a prince bathed in silk and scent, and later, a starving ascetic with ribs like bamboo slats. Neither path had led him to truth. The memory of the 2 extremes in the quiet of a forest glade. He told his followers of those days before awakening. Once I believed that self-torture was the road to freedom. I denied my body food, comfort, sleep. I became like a shadow in the sun, thinking that pain could purify the soul. But pain, too, is a chain when one clings to it. He recalled the night he collapsed by the river Niranjar, too weak to rise. A village girl, Sujata, had seen him and offered a bowl of milk rice. In that moment, as he drank, strength returned, but so did clarity. If the body is the vessel for awakening, why destroy the vessel before reaching the shore? He realized that neither pleasure nor pain held the key. The truth was not at the edges, it was at the center. That realization became the middle way, the nature of the middle way. The middle way is not compromise, it is liberation from extremes. It is not a narrow line between opposites, but a vast openness beyond duality itself. When the Buddha taught it, he did not merely speak of conduct, but of perception, of how the mind creates its own prisons. He said, when one clings to pleasure, the mind is bound by greed. When one clings to pain, the mind is bound by pride. When one sees beyond both, the mind is boundless. Thus, the middle way became both philosophy and practice, a way of seeing reality without distortion, a path between the delusions of eternalism and nihilism, between believing the self is forever and believing nothing exists at all. The Buddha smiled gently and said, the middle way is the silence between two thoughts, the stillness between two breaths, the balance between holding on and letting go. The parable of the lute string. One day, a young monk named Sona approached the Buddha. Sona had once been a musician before taking vows. Now he practiced meditation so intensely that his feet bled. Frustrated, he said, Lord, I strive with all my strength, but peace does not come. My mind burns like fire. The Buddha looked at him kindly. Sona, when your lute strings were too tight, what happened? They snapped, Lord. And when they were too loose, they made no sound. Then tune your mind, Sona, as you tuned your instrument, not too tight, not too loose. Sona bowed deeply, tears in his eyes. He returned to his practice, calm, steady, balanced, and soon peace arose like dawn after the storm. The monks who heard the story repeated it for generations. The parable of the lute became the heart of the middle way, a reminder that awakening is not conquered but allowed. The illusion of opposites. To walk the middle way is to see that duality is an illusion. Pleasure and pain, success and failure, life and death, they are waves of the same ocean. A monk once asked the Buddha, Lord, what is the difference between joy and sorrow? The Buddha held up his hand and opened it. When the hand opens, it is joy. When it closes, it is sorrow. Yet the hand remains the same. In the stillness of insight, one sees that what changes is not the essence, but the mind's relationship to it. All things arise and pass. The wise neither cling nor reject. They simply see the balance of the inner world. The Buddha taught that the middle way was not only a philosophy, but the foundation of right living, of ethics, mindfulness, and meditation. When eating, eat with awareness, not gluttony, not deprivation. When speaking, speak truth, not harshness, not flattery. When meditating, seek calm, not sleep, not strain. Through balance, clarity arises. Through clarity, compassion blossoms. For only a balanced mind can love without fear, act without pride, and see without distortion. Beyond the self, as the monks gathered around him beneath the moonlight, the Buddha's eyes reflected the calm of infinity. In the middle way, there is no self and no other. There is only the path itself, like a road that vanishes beneath your feet, even as it leads you home. He told them that all suffering is born from the illusion of self, the idea that I am separate, I must win, I must become. But when one walks the middle way, the boundaries dissolve, and the heart becomes vast as the sky. The unseen path as dawn broke, a faint mist curled along the forest floor. The Buddha turned to his disciples and said, "Do not seek the middle way in mountains or monasteries. It is not found in silence alone, but in every act of awareness, walking, breathing, seeing, being. For the middle way is not a road we travel, but the awakening of the traveler." And so the monks practiced, not in denial, not in indulgence, but in the living balance between them. Their laughter returned, their faces softened, and in that gentle rhythm of life, they found a freedom that no extreme could offer. The forest shimmered as if breathing with them a living echo of the Buddha's teaching. When you walk the middle way, every step is peace. Chapter 4. The Nature of Mind. Seeing through the veil of illusion, the night was still. 1,000 stars shimmered above the silent forest of Jetavana. The monks sat around the Buddha in meditation, breathing, watching, waiting. At last, one of them, Ananda, opened his eyes and spoke softly. "Lord, we have learned of suffering, of craving, of the path. But the mind that sees these, what is it? What is this eye that seeks enlightenment?" The Buddha looked into the darkness, as if seeing beyond time itself. When he finally spoke, his voice was calm as moonlight on water. "Ananda, you call it mind, but what you call mind is not one thing. It is a river that never ceases to flow. The river of thought, imagine," the Buddha said, "a stream in motion. If you take a handful of water, can you say it is the stream? No, it is only a moment of it. So too is your mind. Each thought arises and passes. Each feeling blooms and fades. You call it I, but it is only the echo of change." The monks sat silently, feeling the flow of breath within them. Every inhalation was birth, every exhalation death. The Buddha continued. "The mind you cling to, the thinker, the doer, the self, is but a shadow moving across the mirror of awareness. When you mistake the shadow for the mirror, ignorance is born." He picked up a lotus petal and held it to the moonlight. "See how the petal reflects the moon, yet the moon never enters the petal. So too the mind reflects the world, yet the world never truly enters the mind." The illusion of the self. A monk named Rahula, the Buddha's own son, asked, "Father, if there is no self, then who feels, who suffers, who is reborn?" The Buddha smiled. "Rahula, when the rain falls upon the earth, does the drop say, 'I am the cloud'? Or when it flows into the river, does it say, 'I am the sea'? The drop is never separate, only changing form." He explained that what we call self is not a fixed entity, but a collection of ever-changing processes. The 5 aggregates: skandhas, form, feeling, perception, mental formations, and consciousness. Like fire made of flame, smoke, and heat, the person you think you are is made of these 5, ever-shifting, never yours. When we cling to them, we suffer. When we see through them, we awaken. The mirror of awareness. The Buddha raised his hand. Awareness is not the same as thought. Thoughts are clouds. Awareness is the sky. Clouds come and go, but the sky remains untouched. He closed his eyes. When you watch your thoughts, you are not bound by them. When you see anger arise, it loses its power. When you see desire appear, it fades. This is the beginning of freedom. The monks bowed deeply. They realized that enlightenment was not the destruction of the mind, but the clear seeing of it, like standing on a mountain, watching the storms pass below. When awareness sees the mind, the Buddha said, the illusion of self dissolves like mist in sunlight. The parable of the mirror. One morning, the Buddha asked his disciples to bring a mirror. They placed it before him, and he said, "When you look in the mirror, you see your face, but is that truly you? Tomorrow you will age, your features will fade. Where then is the self you saw today?" He then turned the mirror toward the sky. The mirror reflects whatever stands before it, yet it clings to nothing. Be like the mirror, reflect the world, but do not become it. The monks watched as sunlight danced on the mirror's surface. It reflected the sky, the trees, the Buddha himself, yet remained unchanged. When you stop saying, "This is me," you begin to see what cannot die. The prison of identification, the Buddha continued. Ignorance begins when we say, "I am this body," or "I am this thought." You are not the wave. You are the ocean, watching the wave. He described the chain of dependent origination, parikasamuppada, how ignorance gives rise to craving, craving to attachment, and attachment to suffering. To break the chain, one must see clearly. All things arise from causes. When the cause ends, the effect ends. When the illusion of I ends, freedom begins. In that silence, even the wind seemed to pause. The monks felt as though the world itself were breathing through them, a rhythm vast and timeless. The mind beyond the mind, Ananda asked, "Lord, if awareness is the sky, what is beyond even that?" The Buddha gazed upward, where clouds drifted like thoughts upon the blue. Beyond awareness is that which cannot be spoken, not born, not made, not dying. It is the unconditioned Nirvana itself. Like space, it holds all things, yet belongs to none. He closed his eyes and whispered, "To know the nature of mind is to know that there is nothing to know." Seeing through the veil, the Buddha told them, "The world you see is shaped by your mind. When your mind is restless, the world trembles. When your mind is clear, the world shines." A monk asked, "Then, Lord, is the world an illusion?" "It is not illusion," said the Buddha, "but reflection. The illusion lies in believing it is separate from you." As the monks listened, the morning light touched the forest floor. Dew sparkled like stars fallen to earth. In that stillness, they felt a presence, not outside, but within, vast, luminous, and free. "This is the true nature of mind," said the Buddha, "empty, yet aware, silent, yet alive, beyond self and other, beyond birth and death." The wind stirred the leaves above them. The Buddha opened his eyes, and the world seemed new, as if creation itself had paused to listen. "When you awaken," he said, "you will see that the mind you seek to understand was never yours to begin with." The monks bowed, tears glistening in their eyes. They understood not through words, but through a silence that reached deeper than thought. And in that silence, the veil of illusion grew thin. Chapter 5, The Wheel of Life. The endless cycle of becoming the day was quiet in the monastery at Rajagaha. The sun filtered gently through the banyan trees, casting golden patterns on the ground. A group of monks gathered before the Buddha, who sat beneath the great tree in stillness, his eyes half closed, his breath like the rhythm of the universe itself. After a long silence, he spoke softly, "Monks, the world does not end with death, nor does it begin with birth. It turns as a wheel turns, from one form to another, from ignorance to wisdom, from bondage to freedom." The disciples listened intently. They had heard whispers of rebirth, tales of past lives and future destinies, but none had yet grasped its true meaning. The Buddha looked upon them and, with a motion of his hand, drew a great circle in the earth before him. Within it, he traced 6 divisions, 6 realms of existence. Then, around the circle, he drew 12 images, each one representing a link in a chain. "Behold," he said, "the wheel of life, the map of all becoming, the mirror of the mind that wanders from age to age." The Buddha's gaze was steady, filled with compassion. Within this wheel, beings are born, live, die, and are born again, not because a god commands it, but because ignorance turns the wheel. He began to explain the 12 links of dependent origination, the chain that binds all living beings to suffering. "First comes ignorance," he said, drawing the symbol of a blind man, "not seeing things as they are. Beings wander in darkness. From ignorance arises formations, the habits of thought and action. From formations, consciousness is born. From consciousness, name and form arise, mind and body. From name and form comes the 6 senses: eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, and mind. From the senses arises contact. From contact, feeling. From feeling, craving. From craving, clinging. From clinging, becoming. From becoming, birth. And from birth comes aging and death, the sorrow, lamentation, and despair that fill the world." The Buddha drew a final ring around the circle and said, "And thus the wheel turns again." The monks stared in silence, their hearts heavy with realization. The world they saw was not a prison built by gods or demons, but by the mind itself, by its own desire and delusion. Every thought, every craving, every grasping at identity added another spoke to the wheel. "Monks," the Buddha said, "the fool cries, 'I was born, I will die.' But the wise see that birth and death are but 2 waves in the same ocean." He began to describe the 6 realms of existence depicted within the wheel, each one a reflection of a different state of mind. In the upper realm dwell the gods, radiant beings bathed in bliss. Yet even their joy fades, for ignorance still touches their hearts. They too must fall when their karma is spent. His voice softened. Below them are the asuras, the titans, powerful and proud, forever at war with the gods, consumed by jealousy and anger. They rise with ambition and fall with hatred. Then he drew the human realm, a land of both suffering and grace. "This is the realm of balance," he said. "Neither too much pain nor too much pleasure. It is here that awakening is possible, for here the mind can see clearly." He pointed lower. "Below the humans are the animals bound by ignorance and instinct. They live in fear, never questioning their chains. Then come the hungry ghosts, beings with empty stomachs and mouths like needles, always craving, never satisfied. And beneath them, the hell's realms of torment born from hatred and cruelty. Yet even these are not eternal, for all things change." The Buddha looked around the circle, his eyes filled with infinite compassion. "None of these realms are places in the sky or under the earth," he said. "They are the states of the mind itself. Heaven and hell are within you, born anew each moment." The monks sat in awe, their understanding deepening like a still lake. One asked quietly, "Lord, how can we escape this wheel?" The Buddha smiled by seeing it clearly. "The wheel spins only because we believe it must. When the eye of wisdom opens, the chain is broken." He touched the center of the circle where he had drawn a small hub. "Here lies the still point," he said. "This is the awakened mind, unmoved, untouched by birth or death. When one rests here, the wheel turns, but one no longer clings to it." He then lifted his gaze toward the horizon. where the sun was beginning to set. "Imagine a candle," he said. "Its flame is passed from one wick to another. The light continues, yet no single flame travels between them. So it is with life continuity without self." The monks felt the meaning sink deep into their hearts. They saw that what is called rebirth is not the journey of a soul, but the continuation of energy, the momentum of mind seeking form. As twilight descended, a faint wind moved through the forest, stirring the leaves. The Buddha spoke again, his voice now a whisper between worlds. "When ignorance ceases, formations cease. When formations cease, consciousness ceases. When consciousness ceases, name and form cease. When all 12 links are broken, the wheel stops turning. This is Nirvana, the peace beyond becoming." The monks bowed deeply, their foreheads touching the earth. Some wept softly, others sat in silence, their thoughts dissolving into stillness. The Buddha remained seated beneath the tree, eyes open yet unfocused, as though gazing upon all worlds at once, the heavens of bliss, the hells of sorrow, the endless river of beings rising and falling through time. Then he said, "Do not fear the wheel. It is not your enemy, it is your teacher. Through it, the mind learns compassion, for all beings spin upon the same wheel, each seeking peace, each longing to be free." The night deepened, the monks slowly dispersed, their hearts filled with new understanding. Ananda lingered behind, watching the Buddha in silence. "Lord," he asked softly, "will the wheel ever stop for all beings?" The Buddha looked up at the moon. "Ananda, the wheel stops wherever wisdom arises, and when compassion fills the world, it will not need to turn again." He smiled, a smile beyond time, beyond sorrow. The forest was quiet. Even the wind seemed to bow before the truth. Above them, the moon glowed like a mirror, round and luminous, a perfect circle, the eternal reminder that even within the turning of the wheel, there is a stillness that never moves. Chapter 6: The Path of Compassion, the heart that embraces all beings. It was the season of rain in the land of Magadha. Clouds rolled across the sky like great gray waves, and the scent of wet earth filled the air. The Buddha and his disciples had taken shelter in the bamboo grove monastery, their robes damp, but their spirits serene. For days they had spoken of the Dharma, of wisdom, of liberation, of the ending of desire. But one evening, as the rain softened into a mist, a young monk named Sona came before the Buddha. His face was pale with exhaustion, his eyes red from weeping. He bowed deeply and said, "Lord, I have meditated without rest, practiced without ceasing, yet my heart feels heavy and joyless. I wish to be free, but my mind is filled with sorrow for all beings who suffer. Even as I sit in silence, their cries echo within me. How can I find peace when the world still burns?" The Buddha looked upon Sona with eyes that saw through lifetimes. Then he spoke gently, his voice flowing like calm water. "Sona, your tears are not in vain. Wisdom cuts through illusion, but compassion heals the wound. Without compassion, wisdom is a sword without a heart. Both are needed for awakening." He motioned for the monks to gather, and they formed a circle around him. The rain whispered upon the leaves above as he continued. "There are those who seek liberation only for themselves. They walk the path alone, seeing the world as illusion, cutting every tie to birth and death. Yet such peace is incomplete, for they have not yet learned the truth of compassion." He paused, and in the silence that followed, the forest seemed to breathe. True enlightenment, the Buddha said, is not to escape the world, but to embrace it fully, to see all beings as oneself. He told the monks a parable. Once a man fell into a river. The current was swift, and he was about to drown. Another man, standing on the shore, had a boat. He could have rowed away to safety, but instead he turned back, reached out his hand, and pulled the drowning man aboard. In that moment, the rescuer was free, for in saving another, he had saved himself. The Buddha smiled. The river is samsara. The boat is compassion. Without it, wisdom cannot cross to the other shore. Sona bowed, tears falling freely. Then, Lord, he asked, should we never seek our own freedom until all are saved? The Buddha's eyes softened. No, Sona, true compassion does not delay enlightenment. It transforms it. When the heart opens, there is no longer I or you. There is only the boundless wish that all beings be free. In that wish, the self dissolves, and Nirvana reveals itself naturally. He turned to the others and said, cultivate metta loving kindness, like a mother who guards her only child with her life. Let your heart guard all living beings with the same care. Then, closing his eyes, he began to chant softly. His voice carried through the rain like a river of light. May all beings be happy. May all beings be free from suffering. May all beings dwell in peace. May all hearts awaken. The monks repeated his words, and as they did, something changed in the air, a stillness deeper than silence, a light that seemed to come from within. Each monk felt his breath slow, his thoughts dissolve, his heart expand beyond his own body, touching the lives of animals, insects, strangers, and unseen spirits. For that moment, they were no longer many, but one vast living presence, breathing with the same rhythm as the world. When the chanting ended, the rain had ceased. The moon appeared between drifting clouds, silver and soft. The Buddha spoke again. Monks, remember this. Wisdom sees the truth of emptiness. Compassion fills that emptiness with love. One without the other is incomplete. He drew a small circle in the sand before him, then within it, a lotus. This is the heart of the path, he said. The lotus blooms from the mud, yet remains unstained. So too must you live in the world, seeing its suffering, but not drowned by it. Sona bowed again, his heart lightened. He felt that for the first time, meditation was not escape, but communion, not closing the eyes to suffering, but opening them to love. As the monks returned to their huts, Ananda stayed behind. He looked at the Buddha and said quietly, Lord, your heart embraces even those who hate you. Is this not painful? The Buddha smiled faintly. Ananda, when one sees that there is no self, there is no one left to be hurt. Only love remains. He lifted his gaze toward the forest, where fireflies flickered like tiny lanterns in the night. Compassion is the bridge between wisdom and the world, he said. It is the echo of the awakened mind, the song of the heart that knows all beings are one. Then he closed his eyes and entered meditation. The air grew utterly still, as though the forest itself had joined him in silence. And for that brief eternity, it seemed as if every leaf, every drop of dew, every heartbeat in the universe was whispering the same prayer. May all beings be free. Chapter 7. The Middle Way. The balance between the worlds. The sun rose gently over the Ganges, casting ripples of gold across the water. Mist hovered above the river like a living spirit, and the early morning air carried the faint sound of temple bells from afar. The Buddha sat beneath a tree with a small group of monks gathered before him. They had walked for many days, moving from village to village, speaking little, sleeping beneath the open sky. Among them was Kassapa, once a priest devoted to fire rituals, now a seeker on the path of awakening. His heart was heavy with confusion. He bowed and said, "Blessed One, before I met you, I burned offerings to the gods, fasted until my body trembled, and lay upon beds of thorns. I believed that only by crushing the flesh could the soul be purified. Yet now you teach of a path that avoids both extremes. How can balance lead to liberation when the world itself is bound by suffering and desire?" The Buddha looked toward the river, calm at its surface, yet moving endlessly beneath. He smiled faintly. "Kassapa, do you hear the sound of the lute?" Kassapa frowned. "The lute, Lord?" The Buddha nodded. "When its strings are too tight, the music breaks. When too loose, there is no sound. Only when tuned in balance does it sing in harmony. So it is with the mind. Discipline without wisdom becomes torment. Freedom without discipline becomes chaos. The middle way is the art of tuning the heart to the truth." The monks listened in silence as the river whispered beside them. The Buddha continued, "Before my awakening, I too walked the path of extremes. I sought salvation in indulgence as a prince, and later in starvation as an ascetic. I held my breath until my vision darkened. I denied the body until it became a skeleton. But neither pleasure nor pain revealed the truth. Both were cages, gilded or rusted, but cages still." He touched the earth with his hand. "When I accepted food from Sujata, the other ascetics turned from me, saying I had fallen. But that was the first moment I truly began to rise. For I saw that the body and mind are not enemies. They are instruments of awakening, to be cared for, not destroyed." He looked at the monks, his gaze steady yet filled with warmth. "The middle way is not weakness, it is strength and balance. It is the still point between the fire and the ash." That evening, as they rested by the riverside, the sky glowed in shades of crimson and violet. Kassapa sat apart, watching the water reflect the dying light. He saw a child playing by the shore, throwing petals into the current. Each petal drifted, sometimes swiftly, sometimes gently, yet all followed the same flow. The child laughed. The sound pierced Kassapa's heart. In that laughter, there was no striving, no fear, no clinging, only life, effortless and pure. He understood. Balance was not control. It was surrender to truth. To live fully in the present moment without being swept away. That was the middle way. Later that night, as the monks sat around a small fire, the Buddha spoke again, his voice low and steady. "Imagine, monks, a man crossing a river. He builds a raft from reeds and branches and reaches the other side. Once there, would he carry the raft on his back, saying, 'This helped me, I must keep it always'? Or would he leave it behind, free to walk forward?" The monks answered as one, "He would leave it behind, Lord." The Buddha nodded. "So must it be with all teachings, even mine. The middle way means letting go, not clinging even to the path that leads to freedom. For freedom cannot be carried, it can only be lived." A gentle wind stirred the flames. The night deepened, stars blooming like white flowers in the sky. "Do not chase heaven, monks," the Buddha said. "Do not flee from earth. See both as reflections of the same truth. Between them lies the middle way, where the heart is free, though the world remains." The next morning, as dawn broke, Kassapa approached the Buddha. He knelt and said softly, "Lord, Last night I dreamed of a path stretching between two cliffs. On one side was fire, on the other darkness. I walked in the space between, and though the path was narrow, I did not fall. The Buddha smiled. You have seen it, Kassapa. That path is life itself. To walk it with awareness is the middle way, neither grasping nor rejecting, neither clinging to joy nor fearing sorrow. This balance is not in the world, it is in the mind. He looked toward the rising sun. When the mind rests in balance, it no longer divides the world into good and bad, gain and loss. Then even suffering becomes a teacher, and peace flows like the river before us, constant, clear, unbroken. As the day brightened, the monks began their journey once more. They walked barefoot along the dusty road, their robes fluttering in the wind. Villagers bowed as they passed, offering rice, water, and flowers. But the monks asked for nothing. Their steps were light, their hearts still, and as they moved between forest and field, between silence and sound, it seemed that they themselves had become the middle way, a living bridge between heaven and earth, between stillness and motion, between the suffering of the world and the peace of the awakened heart. Chapter the 8th. The Wheel of Life. The endless cycle of becoming the monastery was silent beneath a silver moon. Only the soft chirping of crickets and the rustling of bamboo leaves filled the night. The Buddha sat surrounded by his disciples, his figure still and radiant, as if carved from the very essence of light. A single oil lamp flickered beside him, its flame bending gently in the wind. He turned to Ananda, who knelt nearby, and said, "Ananda, the world turns like a wheel, vast and without beginning. Few see its motion, yet all are bound by it. Tonight, I will show you the nature of that wheel." He picked up a stick and began to draw in the sand before him, a circle, smooth and unbroken. Within it, 6 smaller realms took form beneath his hand. The 6 realms. "Behold, monks," the Buddha said. "This is the wheel of life, Bhavachakra. Here are the 6 realms where beings wander according to their actions and desires." His finger pointed to the first, the realm of gods. Here dwell the radiant ones, bathed in pleasure and luxury. Yet even they are not free, for their joy blinds them to impermanence. When their merit fades, they too fall. He drew the next, the realm of titans. Strong, proud, ever struggling, these beings are consumed by jealousy and competition. They fight endlessly for power, never knowing peace. Then he moved lower, the human realm. Here is the world of both joy and sorrow, the place most suited for awakening. For humans taste both suffering and wisdom. Thus, they may seek liberation. Next came the animal realm. Here dwelled those bound by instinct and ignorance. They live in fear, unaware of the path beyond survival. Then the realm of hungry ghosts. Beings here are tortured by craving, their bellies vast, their throats thin as needles. They hunger without end, never satisfied. Finally, he traced the hell realm, and here is the world of pain, born from hatred and cruelty, fire and ice, rage and regret. Yet even this realm, too, is impermanent. The monks sat in awed silence, watching the wheel take form beneath the Buddha's hand. The moonlight shimmered upon the sand, making the drawings appear alive, moving, turning. The law of karma. The Buddha raised his hand and spoke softly. Karma, monks, is not punishment nor reward. It is the law of cause and effect, the echo of every thought and deed. As a seed becomes a tree, so action becomes destiny. Nothing arises without a cause, and nothing is lost without a trace. Ananda asked, "Then, Lord, are we prisoners of our past?" The Buddha shook his head. "No, Ananda. The past shapes you, but does not chain you. The present moment is the key that unlocks all doors. See your actions clearly, without attachment, without ignorance, and the wheel begins to slow." He paused, letting the silence speak. But if one acts in greed, anger, or delusion, the wheel turns again, birth after birth, life after life. Samsara spins not by the will of gods, but by the craving of the mind. The three poisons. Then the Buddha drew a small circle at the center of the wheel. Inside it, he painted with words, a pig, a snake, and a rooster. These are the roots of suffering, the three poisons. The pig represents ignorance, the snake represents hatred, and the rooster represents desire. From them arises the entire world of becoming. They bite each other's tails, feeding one another, turning endlessly. The monks stared at the simple symbols, and a chill passed through them. It was as if they could feel the weight of all lifetimes pressing down upon their souls, a vast ocean of birth and death, in which each wave forgot it was water. The escape from the wheel. The Buddha's eyes softened. "Do not despair, monks, for the wheel may turn, but there is a path beyond its turning." He pointed beyond the circle he had drawn, where the moonlight touched the sand. "There lies Nirvana, the stillness that is not born, that does not die. The fire of craving, when extinguished, leaves no ashes, only peace." Then he traced the image of a man walking upward, out of the circle, toward an open sky. This is the seeker who has seen the wheel for what it is, illusion born from ignorance. When he understands the Four Noble Truths, when he walks the Eightfold Path, the wheel no longer binds him. He rises beyond the worlds. Ananda whispered, "But Lord, how can we escape when the world is so beautiful and so full of sorrow?" The Buddha smiled. "Ananda the wise do not flee the world. They awaken within it. When you see that joy and pain, life and death, are threads of the same cloth, you no longer cling. Then the cloth unravels, and the weaver is free." The vision of the turning. At that moment, the monks felt a strange stillness. The air shimmered, as if the world itself had drawn breath before their eyes. The sand painting seemed to glow, the wheel spinning faster and faster, each realm flashing with images of birth, death, desire, and grief. They saw themselves as kings and beggars, animals and gods, as warriors, mothers, lovers, monks, countless lives flowing into one another, each searching for peace, each forgetting the last. And then, in the very center, they saw the Buddha, unmoving, serene, untouched by the wheel's motion. The wheel turned around him, but he did not turn with it. In that instant, they understood. Freedom was not to stop the wheel, but to no longer be bound to its axis. When the vision faded, the monks bowed deeply. Their hearts were trembling, yet clear. The Buddha erased the wheel from the sand with one sweep of his hand. "All formations are impermanent," he said softly. "Even this teaching, do not worship the wheel, but awaken from it." He looked toward the moon, its reflection quivering upon the river. "The wheel turns in ignorance," he whispered, "but the awakened see no wheel at all." Chapter 9. The Final Silence. The passing of the Buddha. The forest of Kusinagara was quiet under the pale gold of the setting sun. The air smelled faintly of sandalwood and dust. The wind moved softly through the sal trees, scattering white blossoms upon the earth, petals falling like snow. like tears from the heavens. In the shade of two great trees, the Buddha lay upon his right side, his head resting upon his hand. His face was calm, neither young nor old, ageless as stone worn smooth by time. The monks gathered around him, their robes dark against the fading light. Birds had ceased their singing. Even the river nearby seemed to hush its flow. The last journey. Days earlier, the Buddha had walked for the last time. His steps were slow, yet steady, as if the very earth softened beneath his feet. Ananda had begged him to rest, but the Blessed One only smiled. The Tathagata is old, Ananda, like a worn-out cart held together by ropes. Yet, while the body decays, the path remains. They passed through small villages. The people came out with tears, offering fruit and flowers, bowing low to the one who had shown them freedom. Children pressed lotus petals to his robe. Mothers whispered prayers. Even the wind seemed to carry the sound of chanting, soft, endless, eternal. When they reached Kusinagara, the Buddha turned to his disciples and said, "Here, beneath the twin sal trees, the Tathagata shall enter Parinirvana. Make ready, monks. The time has come." The final teaching. As the monks gathered, Ananda wept silently. He knelt beside his master and asked, "Lord, what shall we do when you are gone?" The Buddha's eyes opened slowly, clear, radiant, untouched by pain. "Ananda," he said gently, "do not think the Tathagata truly departs. All things that arise must also pass away. This is the law, eternal and unchanging. Seek no refuge in the body or in form, but in the truth itself. The Dharma is your guide." He paused, and the world seemed to hold its breath. "Be lamps unto yourselves. Walk the path with mindfulness and compassion. Work out your own salvation with diligence." His voice was faint but steady, like the last light before nightfall. The cry of Ananda. Ananda pressed his forehead to the earth. Tears fell, darkening the soil. "Master, I have served you for so many years, yet still my heart clings to you. How can I let go?" The Buddha reached out and touched his disciple's head. "Ananda, love that clings becomes sorrow. Love that frees becomes wisdom. The Tathagata is but a finger pointing at the moon. Do not mistake the finger for the light." The words struck deep. Ananda felt the vastness of his teacher's compassion, a love without possession, a silence that embraced all suffering and joy alike. The descent of silence. As night fell, the sky turned a deep indigo. The monks lit small lamps around the grove, their flames trembling in the still air. The Buddha's breathing slowed, each inhale and exhale like the tide receding from the shore. The world around seemed to dissolve into stillness. The sal trees began to bloom out of season, their petals falling in waves, covering the ground in white. Above, the moon rose, full and luminous, casting silver light upon the Buddha's serene face. He spoke softly. "Everything that has a beginning has an end. The body is like foam upon the sea, bright for a moment, gone the next. But the Dharma is the deep ocean itself. In that, the wise find no fear." Then his eyes closed, and his breath faded into the silence of the stars. The stillness beyond. The monks began to weep, but even their grief seemed to melt into the quiet air. In that moment, the forest shimmered. The earth itself trembled, not with violence, but with reverence. A golden light spread from the body of the Buddha, not blazing, but soft, like dawn breaking through endless night. The trees bent slightly toward him. The river stilled its current. and for a heartbeat, all sound ceased. There was no wind, no breath, and within that stillness, the monks felt something beyond sorrow, a vast, boundless peace. It was as if the Buddha's silence had entered their hearts, replacing grief with clarity. They understood the Enlightened One had not gone anywhere. He had simply ceased to appear. The fire of liberation at dawn, they carried his body to the funeral pyre. Ananda's hands trembled as he placed the first flame upon the wood. The fire rose, gold, red, white, and yet it gave no smoke. The monks watched as the form of the Buddha dissolved into light. Ashes fell gently like snow. From the heart of the flame, a fragrance spread, not of burning, but of blossoms in eternal spring. When the fire faded, only a few relics remained clear and shining like crystal. The monks gathered them reverently, knowing they held not the Master's essence, but symbols of the truth he embodied. The wordless sermon for days, the grove remained still. Even travelers who passed through Kusinagara felt something, a peace that lingered in the air, as if the silence itself was preaching the final sermon. Ananda later spoke to the assembly. "We mourn the form that has passed, but we have seen the truth that cannot die. The Buddha is not in heaven, nor in ashes. He is in the seeing, in the waking, in the freedom of a mind unbound, and thus in silence, deeper than words." The Sangha bowed to the empty space between the sal trees, the space where form ended and truth began. Epilogue: the eternal Dharma. Centuries passed, empires rose and fell. The names of kings were forgotten, but the Dharma remained. Every temple bell that rang, every monk who walked barefoot at dawn, every whisper of compassion that touched a stranger's heart was the echo of that night in Kusinagara. For though the Buddha's body had turned to dust, his silence still spoke across the ages. There is no death for the awakened, only the end of dreaming. And somewhere, beyond form and formlessness, beyond all heavens and hells, the Buddha smiled, neither gone nor remaining, but free.